And bank customers in Berwick say that they will face a 40-mile trip to their nearest branch of Santander now once the company closes their local branch on April the 28th. That means the nearest alternative across the border in Galashiels. Now, the bank blames a sizable shift towards digital banking, but it is part of a worrying trend across the UK, with 6,600 branches closed by varying banks since 2015. Another 228 are scheduled to shut this year, and already there are no banks left in Alnwick, in Seahouses, in Amble, or indeed in Bedlington. Well, last night there was a public meeting in Berwick organised by the Labour MP for the area, David Smith, who joins me now. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
I gather, David, that you feel that this is perhaps the biggest local issue that you've had to deal with actually since you were elected a couple of years ago.
That's right, yes. I was informed by Santander, I think late February, that was their intention to close the branch, and I immediately sought to arrange a meeting with a senior person in the bank that would speak to me. And I put a post out on Facebook just saying, look, I'm going to be doing this, and the response was overwhelming, and I think it sort of touched a nerve of people's frustration about how, national banks are withdrawing from the high street. And lots of people just talked about, their frustration, how they do need this kind of service, what it means about the relationship between banks and communities. So, yes, there was an overwhelming response, actually.
I am from Berwick. I remember growing up and there were banks everywhere, of course, same with many towns. I think there's still 2 banks left and a building society, but I guess the concern is that they will disappear as well. So even if people were to switch their business to those, there'd be a fear that they would disappear too, David.
That's it, exactly. So there are, the Royal Bank of Scotland, there's a Bank of Scotland. However, if you look at a comparable town in my constituency, Alnwick, until 3-4 years ago, there were actually 3 high street banks in Alnwick. Now there are none. And as you said, with the statistics overall nationwide, it's a clear trend with the banks withdrawing and offering, in my opinion, poorer alternatives to banking. Of course, lots of us bank online now. That's normal. But there are some services, and particularly for some people, they can't handle the digital part of it, or they have other vulnerabilities that make it difficult. So, I think that the national banks have something of a moral obligation, actually, to remain on the high street, but the trend is going in the opposite direction.
Santander, for its part, says it will keep a weekly presence in Berwick, and it's blaming the move of so many customers to online banking for what it's having to do. You've already explained that doesn't suit everybody, and I guess particularly older customers. I mean, I remember actually, coming from the village of Alnwick, south of Berwick, you'll know it well, I'm sure. There used to be a Barclays Bank there. It's a very small village, and it used to be, I think it was open a couple of days a week, and the staff there would move around to other kind of rural branches there. So some people kind of, have that they've been accustomed to over the years. And it's gradually dwindled, doesn't it? But it clearly, is something people feel hugely strongly about.
That's right. And another example is Seahouses, a village I know well. Until a few years ago, there was a Barclays Bank on the roundabout at Seahouses. People will know it if they've ever been to the ice cream parlours, the chip shops. That then moved to the same suggestion as what Santander are planning to do, which is, a so-called banking hub, not in the way that there's many other banks there, like in other towns, which is a slightly different thing. Just Barclays 1 day a week in one of the local community centres. Well, that closed recently. Because we were told it wasn't being used, but it's very different, having 1 day a week sequestered away in a community centre as opposed to a visible presence open all the time, and it feels a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And just very briefly, David, anything come from the meeting last night? Was there any progress, do you feel?
No, it's the short answer. I would say I think there's a real grim resignation from those that turned up. Santander aren't planning to change their approach. They will have this 1 day a week in Berwick workspace. I'll be watching that very closely. Santander know how upset I am about their intention, and I'll be making sure that they and other banks continue to provide services to the people of Berwick.
David, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.